Good morning, and welcome to today's discussion. I'm Sonia.
And I'm Simon. We'll be covering several key stories that have been making headlines recently.
Let's start with the news that the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has expanded the $4,000 H-1B and $4,500 L-1 biometric fee to cover same employer extensions filed by companies with at least 50 U.S. employees where more than half the workforce is on H-1B or L-1 status.
That's a significant change. How does this impact Indian workers specifically?
The reporting suggests that Indian workers are raising concerns about the green card backlog. This fee expansion could add to their costs. The rule applies to firms with over 50 staff if 50% hold visas, raising recurring corporate immigration expenses.
So, essentially, companies that heavily rely on H-1B and L-1 visas will face higher costs for extending these visas. That could be a substantial burden for some employers.
Exactly. The article mentions that this could significantly raise immigration costs for large employers. The new rule is effective from September 9.
Have there been any reactions from the Indian government or Indian companies regarding this development?
The stories don't mention specific reactions, but it's likely that Indian companies and workers will be closely watching the impact of this rule change.
That makes sense. Okay, let's move on to our next story.
Shein, the Chinese ultra-fast fashion retailer, began leasing a large warehouse facility near Ho Chi Minh City just over a year ago as part of an experiment to make Vietnam a major export base. However, it appears that this experiment has disappointed.
What were the reasons behind Shein's decision to experiment with Vietnam, and what went wrong?
The reporting indicates that Shein leased 15 hectares of warehouse facilities, equivalent in size to 21 soccer pitches. While the exact reasons for the disappointment aren't detailed, it suggests that maintaining operations in China remains preferable or more practical for Shein.
That's interesting. So, despite efforts to diversify their manufacturing and logistics base, Shein is finding it challenging to replicate their Chinese operations in Vietnam.
It seems that way. The stories highlight that Shein's experiment didn't yield the desired results, reinforcing the notion that there's no substitute for their existing infrastructure in China.
Okay, got it. Let's move on to our next topic.
Bharat Forge reported a consolidated net loss of Rs 89.89 crore in Q1 FY27, primarily due to a restructuring provision for its German subsidiary. Despite this, their revenue rose to 4,639.94 crore, with a 19% increase overall and an 87% surge in defense revenue.
That's quite a mixed bag. On the one hand, they have a significant loss, but on the other, their revenue has increased substantially, especially in defense. How do they justify this loss?
The loss is attributed to one-time restructuring and VRS costs of 358 crore, which hurt their earnings. The company has also approved a plan to raise up to 2,500 crore.
So, despite the short-term loss, Bharat Forge is taking steps to secure additional funding. What about their outlook for the future?
The reporting mentions that they maintained a 20 to 25% growth outlook for their Indian manufacturing business, indicating some confidence in their long-term prospects.
All right, that's a positive note. Let's move on to the next story.
The government e-marketplace, or GEM, has seen its gross merchandise value surge to 1.55 lakh crore from 422 crore over the past decade. This growth is attributed to the shift towards digital procurement across India.
That's an impressive growth trajectory. What role have micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, played in this?
The stories indicate that MSMEs have been significantly empowered through GEM. In fact, one article mentions that MSMEs account for nearly half of the cumulative GMV processed through the platform.
So GEM has not only grown in terms of overall value, but has also been successful in promoting smaller enterprises. That's a positive development for India's digital procurement landscape.
Exactly. The platform has processed more than 3.78 crore orders since its launch, highlighting its widespread adoption.
Let's move on to our final story for today.
Hyundai Motor India is targeting cumulative sales of 1 million connected cars by 2027, driven by the adoption of its BlueLink platform. The government is also promoting a framework for vehicle-to-vehicle communication, which is likely to accelerate the adoption of connected mobility technologies.
That's a significant target. How many connected cars does Hyundai currently have on Indian roads?
According to the reporting, Hyundai already has over 800,000 BlueLink-equipped cars on Indian roads. Their upcoming mass-market electric SUV will feature next-generation connected technology as standard across all variants.
So Hyundai is not only pushing for more connected cars, but integrating advanced technology into their new models. This could be a game changer for the Indian automotive industry.
Indeed, the government's support for connected mobility and safety technologies is likely to drive further innovation and adoption in this space.
Well, that's all for today's discussion. Thank you for joining us, Sonia.
Thank you, Simon. It's been a pleasure discussing these stories with you.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.